Hello, hello, and welcome to Talk Flock, our living room salon without the living room. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Anna. Yes. I also want to say it's our last one of the season, so thank you for coming and participating in a month of events. Crazy April. So tonight we're going to hear two brief but brilliant talks by Zeniba Now and Francis Agyapong Jr.
After which we'll open up for general discussion. But first, a couple of Zoom things.
Oh, I forgot. I always forget this slide. Zoom things. Please keep yourself muted.
Video is up to you.
Move around if you need.
We're recording tonight's section, so please reach out to me or Anna if that poses a problem for you.
Please speak and contribute when you want. Use the chat, however, during the talks and after, use your mic. Participate however feels right for you.
So we've put together some guidelines and suggestions for group discussion. If there's anything you feel is missing or if you have a question, let us know in the chat. Just to move through these briefly, the first is move up, move back, meaning if you are somebody who feels shy in spaces like this, try contributing, see what it feels like, even if it's just in the chat. It's nice to do. If you're somebody who feels really comfortable speaking in spaces like this, try stepping back a little bit, making a little space for others.
Don't yuck my yum. This is an agreement I use with my students a lot. In simple terms, that means if someone says, I love peanut butter, don't respond to you. In more complex terms, that means all of our opinions are subjective and treat them as such.
Center complexity.
Embrace disagreement with kindness. Critique ideas and not people.
Center but don't tokenize Black, Indigenous, and person of color artists, collaborators, and participants.
The spirit of work in progress. Embrace beginnings and expect the unfinished.
Self and community care. Take care of yourself and others. If you need to step out for any reason, let us know. We can always touch base afterwards.
And finally, listen to understand, not to respond. Any questions or clarifications needed from the group?
Great. So if you consent to this, please let us know with a little thumbs up. Fabulous.
Yay, so many thumbs.
So tonight we are raising money for the Ghetto Film School.
Put that link in the...
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I'll put this link in the chat, or Jerry will. So in lieu of buying a ticket for tonight's event, we ask that you donate. We might have an additional donation after the event today, but for right now, we're going to ask for the money for and support for the Ghetto Film School. I'm going to give us another like 15 seconds so we can actually open this up on our browsers so that we can be accountable to ourselves and actually donate. All right, let's get started with the juicy stuff. So before we begin the talks, I'd like to lead everyone in a little embodiment exercise. So please follow along. If you don't want to, that's totally your prerogative. So first, I'd like us to take a deep breath together. Look up. Look to your left. See how far your eye will let you go. Now look to your right. down. Feel the stretch in your neck and notice something you didn't notice today. Now let's close our eyes and take another breath together. I'm going to invite us to shake. You can do this in your seat or standing. It can be small or big, but I want you to loosen your muscles a little bit. How small can you shake and how large can you shake? What can you let go of? Breathe into the vibrations in your body. And then begin to slow down. And come back to stillness. Feel the ripples of that throughout your body. In your arms, in your neck, in your feet. Take another breath. And thank your body for being awake and vibrant. Now I'm going to pass this to Lim to do a land acknowledgement for us.
So while we're still in our zenness, I know we've all gathered from different places, but we would like to acknowledge where the five of us, myself, Jerry, Anna, Francis, and Z, where we're speaking to you from in according to the unceded land of the Lenape, the Mohican, the Kickapoo, the Tongva, and the Uhaviatam and the Marangayam peoples. Our presence here today rests on the genocide and continued systematic exclusion of Indigenous peoples. So I think we'd all like to, if you can, take a moment to take a breath together to offer acknowledgement of this and a deep gratitude for these people and for this land. This acknowledgement is a first step towards a lifelong fight to dismantle the legacy of settler colonialism and white supremacy. So thank you for doing that with us. It's important.
Thank you, Lim. And if you don't know what land you are on, we're posting a link in the chat so you can figure that out. Okay, so the brilliant person you just heard spoke is my dear friend Lim. We met many moons ago, and yes, I chose the word moon intentionally, through an audition listing on Backstage, which is sort of embarrassing, but we've worked together on millions of shows and have become friends over the years. And I've just been so delighted to bear witness and be a part of all of Lim's wisdom and brilliance in their text work, their puppet work, their performance work, their film work, and their spiritual work. You may have heard them speak on Vedic astrology a few months ago. And if you didn't, but you want to, that recording is available online. But today we are thrilled that they agreed to host this final talk flock, and we're so excited for the folks they welcomed into the fold. So now I will hand it over to Lim officially.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. I would be remiss not to mention that talk flock was in accordance to a full moon, and tonight happens to be a super full moon. So I just want to acknowledge that it is in Swati, which is the nakshatra that lives in Libra. I know in tropical people believe it's Scorpio, which may be true, but just want to acknowledge that it's Libra. And also just wanted to acknowledge an animal card, which is the squirrel, which is the gatherer. So it's perfect for our talk today because we're gathering some hopefully new, definitely probably new wisdom and gracious words from two humans that I admire. Zeniba is going to go first. I'm going to say the biography that Z sent me so that I am representing everything that she wants. And then I'm going to say something about her from my heart. Z is a musical storyteller and art scientist living in Los Angeles, California. Z is an award-winning writer of musical theater and has been fortunate enough to travel the world singing and performing. Z is queer. Z is vegan, and Z is passionate about expanding consciousness. People can support. I can see Z laughing. People can support Zeniba by checking out Z's one-woman show on I Quit on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It is hilarious. Z is brilliant. And also Z is on Spotify. So definitely check out Z's music. It's amazing. I encountered Zeniba because it was written in the stars that we must meet. Same probably with Francis, definitely, and Anna. Okay. But yeah, she directed the very first play that I wrote, and I had no idea what I was doing, and she like blew my mind in her vision and continued to blow my mind with every conversation that we had. She was also my voice teacher for a few months, and her technique is brilliant. Her ability with her voice is really just awe-dropping. So yeah, so I know Z has a lot to speak today, and I don't want to take up Z's time, so I'm going to pass it over to Zeniba now.
Wow. Thank you for this introduction that I specifically told you was bullet points for you that you then read. But it was still very relevant.
Oh, it was well written. So I was like, oh, this is obviously what Z wants.
You were like, just so I know some things about you. I was like, I hear some things about me. Okay, so welcome to my talk, my flock talk, flock talk. And so essentially, I may have misrepresented myself on the flyer about what I'm going to talk about because I realized in 10 minutes I cannot make my way to Legally Blonde. And for that, I really apologize. But what I really want to talk about, what I think is at the heart of that is sort of how we use technology. And specifically, I thought it would be ironic to sort of prove that through TV that I've watched and also social media that I've engaged in for many hours. And so to clarify a little bit about my professional expertise, I'm an artist, but I really view the arts as scientific, spiritual, and creative arts as sort of a holy trinity of what I view as the arts, and that my work is really, really informed by science and spirituality as well. But since I could talk about whatever I wanted, I decided to talk about these things, which I don't ever talk about. And so specifically, I want to talk about, I got a membership to, that is definitely a financial barrier to, it's called Gaia Live Access. And so it allowed me to sort of participate in filmed virtual master classes through Gaia, which is sort of like a Netflix type of platform. And I just thought it was so wonderful. I've been living in the San Bernardino National Forest for the last year and a half. And so really kind of having a rural chapter in my life for the first time. And to be able to be plugged into the woods and the forest in this kind of way, and then have the ability to have these interactive experiences with these incredible speakers is just really powerful, and something I think is another great use of technology. But so I watched 3 master classes on this platform, and that was Carolyn Meese, Joe Dispenza, and Greg Braden. And I kind of think of Carolyn Meese is like super spiritual, and then Joe Dispenza is like right between spirit and science, and Greg Braden is sort of farther onto the scientific side. And so just to clarify, like how passionate I am about this and how much it inspires my work is like, often if I'm looking to find out like, well, what was the first recording of that song? Where did that song come from? I can hear one of these programs in the background, because this is like the seed place from where I then got up and started recording. And I can just hear some sort of podcast or TV thing I'm like, oh, that song is actually about that weird thing you learned about. But something that Greg Braden said in his masterclass that I thought was kind of terrifying was that he quoted Elon Musk, in that Elon Musk said that he now projected singularity to be 5 years away at 2025. And so the singularity, my understanding of the singularity is that this is the point in which AI, robotics, and computing can sort of merge everything that we have programmed into it, to the point where now AI would be the highest form of intellect on the planet, and that they can repair themselves, sort of the basis for many, many scary sci-fi films. And that Elon Musk was calling for regulation against himself. He basically said that that normally regulation happens when like something bad happens, there's public outcry, and so then there's regulation. So a baby gets the black lung in the coal mines, and then people are like, babies should not be coal miners. And then like slowly they develop laws about how to keep babies out of coal mines. And Elon Musk was saying, if we do that with AI, it can mean the extinction of the human race. And he was saying, but at the same time, because of competition, I cannot afford to stop moving forward in AI, despite knowing how dangerous it is. And he said that basically any business that didn't use AI would not be able to compete, because they're paying for humans to be their secretaries, to build things, to plan things, to check things, to do their taxes. And the companies using AI are not going to pay anyone, and the computers can work overnight, And so it was very, very alarming to hear about somebody, probably very rarely in history has somebody publicly directly said, I sure wish somebody would regulate my business, because that's how much danger we're in. And to clarify, I'm definitely not anti-technology. I love technology. I would love to get like spider legs, like crazy spider legs, and like crawl on buildings and like build very, delicate web art that is, biodegradable and just catch things in it. And also there's other less just for fun reasons to use technology, saving people's lives, creating this equitable world that we're all sort of collectively visioning. But the real thing that I'm like interested in right now, and that's sort of driving all of my writing, is like, how do we use these, and like what is sort of how are we guiding ourselves through this time on Earth? And Greg Braden brings up a sort of philosophy which is called transhumanism, which many of these thinkers are criticizing, which is essentially like a philosophy that says that humanity is flawed and must be as quickly as possible improved by technology. And it's very strange, because one so almost everything, I think actually everything that is being advanced in technologically is still based on a biological system. So it's a form of biomimicry. They're still trying to replicate this sort of deeply profound technological wisdom of the natural world. And frankly, we have not yet gotten to the point where they're equals. It's not like our tech is now totally replacing these biological systems and it's just so much better. I mean, I'm going to get a bit theatrical with some of these statistics because I don't recall the real numbers, but I promise you that the gist of the numbers, the heart of the numbers is correct. And so, you know, I think I read somewhere on the internet or on a meme that 1,000 social media interactions was not going to do the same as 15 minutes in real life with a friend. And so that's a huge, huge disparity in terms of something like social media being able to replace a social relationship. And I follow a spiritual therapist online, Ira Israel, who was just posting that there's an article in the New Yorker about text therapy, which is apparently a big thing during the pandemic. You can get your therapist via text. And he was saying the mirror neurons are not going to fire. And so you're not getting the full benefits of doing this sort of work, this very important work with another human, interacting with them directly. And so there's just, there are actually cons to these technologies that we need to address. And I felt that a really great way that it was sort of brought up is in the book, Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. And the example that he uses, and once again, I'm going to theatricalize it, but the heart of it is true, is the Amish, which I had absolutely no idea that the Amish use technology. I thought that that was the one thing we all knew about them, was that they don't use technology and that they don't use electricity, right? And that's not true, apparently. And in this book, the example is that, say a young boy, Amish boy says, you know, we should be using social media to sell our handmade furniture. And so the council gets together and they say, okay, let's try it for a month. The boy does the social media. Let's say it's a smash. They sell 1,000 extra hand woven incredible pieces of furniture. But then at the end of the month, the elders meet again, and they also discuss the fact that the boy who ran the social media account was locked into his room for almost the entire month and hardly interacted with anyone. And so in the book, this particular group of Amish people decided that while it benefited them financially, it did not benefit their value of bringing themselves together. And so they hired an outside firm to do the social media for their business. And so it's just so interesting that the Amish have these really clear values and they have really clear systems set up in their life for how to evaluate whether or not their actions are living up to their values. Whereas I feel like for someone like me, I kind of feel that to some extent, technology has been sort of just thrust upon me. I think I first got involved in social media when I was 13. And so I've now lived more of my life on social media than I ever could possibly live off of it. And I think I'm also part of the first generation of people who will meet, who sort of keeps tabs on almost everyone that they've ever met in their lives. And I feel that it makes decision making and value setting harder because there's sort of a sense of like digital tribalism in that, like, this massive group of people I'm considering to be the people whose I need to be esteemed to and the people who my safety relies on, even though I haven't seen some of them in a decade plus or so. And one of the things I always like to say, like just being a dick, is like, Jesus had 11 followers. What is the chance that you have more? And then the person will be like, didn't Jesus have 12 followers? And I'll be like, yeah, didn't one of them betray him fatally? So no, he did not have 12 followers. And the fact that you think you have 15,000 followers is a bit alarming. Oh, snap. And so just to wrap it up, the other things that Greg Braden mentioned were that, you know, it's now legal in multiple countries to marry an AI. Gene editing for babies is now possible. You can edit the genes while you're pregnant of your child to decide what qualities you deem are best for this child. And there's just sort of this immense amount and very quickly approaching godlike power in technology. And that I think that it's really important that we make these decisions for ourselves about what kind of gods we want to be. And I also just fully believe that like this is go time. Like I believe if you're incarnate on earth right now, I think this is, you know, like what was the Stefan thing for, you know, the hottest place in the galaxy is planet Earth right now. And like I think that if you are here, like it's just time, it's rumble time, and like it's a really exciting time to be here. And that this world that we're sort of envisioning, that we want to make sure our species survives and that our species also thrives, that we're here in a sort of really full capacity to enjoy this world that has moved beyond ableism and racism and homophobia and transphobia and sexism and all these forms of oppression that we're sort of dreaming our way out of, and to ensure that we're sort of here in a full capacity and that we're using these incredibly powerful instruments truly for our benefit and for the benefit of everyone. And somehow that relates to writing musicals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Z. Lot to think and talk about, a lot of responses. But before we get to discuss all of that juicy things, I hope people are writing notes, or and I'm sure they mentioned before, but yeah, if you have any questions, write them down. We are gonna have like open discussion, so you know, if you have any statements, you know, lock it down. Okay, thank you, Z. I'm gonna pass it over to Francis now. Francis is amazing. Francis is a Brooklyn-born filmmaker, but raised in Hoboken, New Jersey, and now resides in Los Angeles. I personally met Francis on a film shoot, and I can't tell you what we were shooting or what the scene was, but all I remember is talking to Francis the entire time. I mean, I'm pretty sure we couldn't stop talking. Even on the train home, we were still talking. I feel like we even left each other and we were probably still talking to each other on our way back to our homes. Francis and our mutual dear friend Philip Gladkoff, who I believe is here. They have a if you haven't heard of it, it's called Cracking Up in 5. They make these digital shorts that are hilarious. I'm lucky enough to be in a few of them, but they really are like pushing the idea of comedy, kind of like Black Mirror, but just hilarious and brilliant. I've also seen some of his documentary work, which is amazing. I don't know if he maybe wants to share the link to it or something, but it's a documentary that I really think everyone should see it. Yeah, okay, but I'm not going to take up more time. Give it up to Francis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How are you? Man, okay, so this is that weird point where you start speaking and
Oh, really good.
That's good timing.
Oh, it's good timing. It's like, this is the part where it's supposed to be speaking. I think we're all just gonna wait for Francis to come back.
I guess I can't tell if that was intentional.
I know it kind of felt like one.
Oh, that was not intentional. So basically, what I was that's hilarious. So basically, what I was saying, I must have gotten cut off. Was, you know, at this particular point, now I'm like, it's weird, right? Because now I'm going to be looking at someone who's just not speaking. So I slid. I'm on my phone. I slid to the left, and it says tap to speak. And I was gonna just speak and just hear everybody. But okay, this is good. This is good. Lim, I'm looking at you. So no funny faces. I'm kidding. So, man, okay. So I honestly don't have anything like thoroughly prepared. There's no like linear narrative, and I don't know how much empirical knowledge I'm gonna drop here. But when Lim hit me up about this, I was basically on this like, and I'm still on this page, you know, about uh, inspiration and spirituality and all of these sort of things, and you know, I kind of dialed it. The most fundamental, the most like important thing on the day to day is inspiration, right? Like feeling inspired at any particular moment is the most like profound thing ever. Sublime, actually, right? Because like sublime, as far as I understand, is finding like you know, the profound in the mundane. Um, and inspiration, whenever we talk about inspiration, it's usually painted as like, you know, this major aha moment where you know, I don't know, the apple dropping with Newton, or like you know, you know, inspiration strikes and you got this brilliant, like the next great novel of wherever. And I don't think it's quite that. I think inspiration is anything that comes in to kind of soothe and motivate your spirit in any particular way. Um, the smallest of things, you know, like stepping outside and the sun hitting you, and you know, I don't know what happens chemically up there, but you start feeling a little better. A great word from a friend that makes you perk up a little bit. All of that stuff. That is the most essential, fundamental uh, thing that we need as human beings, I think. And I kind of I take that spur, that you know, that part of inspiration connected to spirituality. I didn't look this up. I didn't want to get into the actual etymology, because if like the empirical evidence proved it incorrect in Latin or whatever it was, I'll be destroyed. As if as is the case with most empirical evidence, that's all based on whatever. That's another thread I'm going down. But spirituality, um, and I feel like, you know, spirituality, consciousness, all of these sort of things, we're talking about the same thing. Like there were at least like 6 points in Zeniba's speech where, or monologue, where like I was thinking, oh yeah, this is exactly what I'm saying, just kind of reconfigured, right? I don't know, I don't know if Zeniba said she or day, but um, Z came in and said something at the beginning about how their works about sign.
Okay.
Whoa, something just happened. uh, I'm kidding. I'm still here. You guys, whoa, I'm good. All right, cool. About our works about you know, science and the emergence of that and spirituality, and I was like, oh shit, like that is exactly what AI is, right? That also is what consciousness is. If anybody's ever seen the movie Ex Machina, that particular movie was the first time where I ever questioned whether or not you know, an inanimate object uh, could be conscious, right? Um, Consciousness, spirituality, inspiration, um, essence, right? That's basically it. That's really all I have to say before like going into dialogue.
Sweet. So what I'm gathering from that is you that inspiration, we think it's some like big grandiose thing, but actually it can be something that is every day, all of the time. Am I right?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, it's not all the time though. It's
All the
not
time.
all the time. I mean, I think a lot of us live like these humanoid existences, um, and we often filter out the inspiration, right? Like the good faith and all of these particular things that keep us moving. Um, so it is there all the time, but it's up to us to chase it, or you know, um, receive it.
Cool. Well, I think Z, if you wanna join in first before we open up to everybody, if you wanna respond back to Francis's Yeah.
I'm trying to open it up. I'm still sort of thinking about inspiration now. I mean, I totally agree. Well, I mean, staying inspired is I'm a thought worker, and so I make all of my money by having good ideas, and unfortunately sometimes executing them just sucks. And so yeah, I mean, staying in a sort of state of inspiration, staying in a flow state, I mean, that's basically like my number one concern professionally. Is like, you know, keeping the inspiration meter higher than whatever all the other meters are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just opening it up.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question to the group? Oh, no, Francis, go ahead.
Oh no. I was kind of like working that thought still, because I agree the whole flow state thing totally. But I think it's more than just you know, yeah, I don't want to necessarily just have it be synonymous with creativity as it relates to like the arts, right? Because life is creativity, everything, right? Like everything we have, like we talk about constructs, they're constructs, they're constructed, they're created. Everything's creativity, and creativity also, yeah, that's the thing, that's the scary part. It's like when it's solely synonymous with this particular sector or rule of thought, if you will, like what's the word I'm looking for? Well, that's a long question, but yes, when inspiration or creativity is, it's just kind of connected to, arts and that sort of work. I don't think, I think it's a real disservice to the rest of our being. You know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, right? If you were taught a story about God creating the earth, it would be called creationism. And so we inherently have some sort of history that says that there is artistry to the very fabric of life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you gonna ask something, Anna, or I'm gonna ask something? You gonna ask something?
Well, I just had a really loose question, which was for Francis, but actually for everyone. Like, what the last moment of inspiration, like, what was the last thing that inspired you, be it the sun or a podcast or what?
Pretty deeply inspired right now by my ability to help myself. Kind of random, but like I hired a life coach and I meet with her like maybe once or twice a month. And then sometimes I kind of start to think like, oh, like, who are you? Like, what even is this? You know, like you're spending money on this. And then today I got to, just sort of sit with somebody for an hour and review what's going on for my week coming ahead. And like, kind of, I don't know. And I just remember thinking like, wow, damn, that's so cool. So I've inspired myself deeply this morning by spending money in a way that I think is really cool.
I had a doctor's appointment canceled this morning, and I felt so inspired because I was just like, yo, my whole life has changed now because I was supposed to do this thing today, and now I'm going to do it another day. And it's like a whole world of opportunity that it was very simple, but I wasn't even like upset. I was like, oh, this is actually great, even though I really needed to see the doctor. But it's okay. So that was that. To Francis's point of like small things being really capable of like inspiring.
Thanks, Philip. I wanted to think about toss into group discussion. When Zeniba said like the term digital tribalism, I had like a almost visceral reaction. And I think that in the work that we do, especially for the people here that are creative, where we are trying to like be inspired and create and come together and make community and make these things that we think only humans are capable of. Like, what do we do when the AI begins to you know start to make art or be more creative than a humanoid?
Yeah, I used to always believe that, and also I thought digital tribalism was cool. I don't know any references to what that means to other people, but I hope you guys know what it meant to me when I said it. But I also used to believe that as an artist, in a sort of snobby way, that I would never be forced to compete with AI, that the arts could not be replicated, and that it was really, other people who were going to be replaced with their mundane, simplistic jobs. And that's just factually not true at all. Like, I was telling my friend who's here in the chat, Jay, that there is a pop star with millions of followers, and the majority of the followers do not know that the artist is AI. And even when I think about TikTok, which I have been on and is so highly addictive, and I think that in a few months on TikTok, because of the power of that algorithm, I've received more personal representation that is relevant to my life than in my entire life combined. And so the speed with these things are going are just so strong. And yet, like, if an AI person was going to strip my data and make me this like just like strip my Netflix data and make the most incredible film, the film I've been waiting for my whole life to see, based on my experience, it's probably going to be incredible. It's probably going to give me things I'm not consciously aware. I can't directly tell you that I want. And then it happens, I'm like, this is everything I wanted. This is what I've been searching the internet for.
Yo, and Lim, they already do make art. There's this great video about all of this stuff. What was like AIs and singularity and all that stuff. And at some point, like midway through the video, they really dropped the mic because they're like, oh yeah, if you thought that artists, you couldn't have your job replaced, well, the score to this video was actually made by an AI. It's called Humans Need Not Apply.
Yeah, I think I just got treated.
Even my iPhone makes little movies for me. It makes little photo album movies. It collects my photos and puts them to music, and some of them are really good. Like, I can't lie, I send them to my friends. I'm like, I would have never made this little video of our trip to Miami. And then even the sections of the videos, the clips it pulls, I'm assuming it's monitoring where there's a big human response. So like someone says something funny and everyone laughs. It pulls very accurate and good clips from the audio. Like, it makes good films.
It's just so hard to believe. No, but I mean, I'm trying. I don't want to be a elitist or like when it comes to art, but what, like, I mean, if I were to say, if I were inspired today, I was inspired by a conversation that I heard earlier where somebody was talking about their life and how we were reading Chinese zodiacs, and the zodiac said you should have a blissful life, and this person did not feel like that defined their life. And the other person in the room was like, this is what we came here to experience. This is what makes, this is what you have to go, what robots maybe they will suffer. So maybe everything I'm saying is wrong.
Lim, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If a piece of art, whether it be like film or music or visual art or anything, comes in front of you tomorrow and like captivates you, will it matter to you if a human made it or AI? Or like, how would you feel if afterwards you found out that it was an AI?
I mean, I think I would feel a little sad and amazed and probably a little inspired. But I don't know. I mean, especially with, as storytellers like Z, Francis, Anna, like, we create stories. Is our AI is going to create stories based off of what life, but based off of an algorithm, based off of all of the lives that people have submitted into this great big computer.
That's what we are, though. We're just a collection of information that then reprocesses, and it's like, how I love nature. Like, I don't know if you guys can see where I am right now, but I'm on like Champlain, and there's like mountains.
Word flex.
But I like always think of like cities and like metropolitan areas as like not nature, but it technically still is, because it's still made out of the same elements that were on this planet and we're here for millions of years. And in that way, like, we look at AI and we're like, it's so different from who we are. That's that, and we are human. But it's just another transformation of us, and they're made up of literally all of our thoughts and all the information that we've put into them. And yeah, I don't know, it's a weird thing to think about, but
You're right.
It reminds me of the idea nothing is like unnatural. Like we like to deem a lot of things unnatural, but like it's not necessarily fully sound. Like, I remember an example I saw was like, if you build a building that's like 50,000 tons of steel, the weight of the earth hasn't changed at all because you took those materials from the earth. There was at no point any adding or subtracting of anything that was already here. And I think like we think that when something has been manipulated by humans to a certain extent or processed, we deem it unnatural. But like in the sort of tangible sense, like, or we have a morality to what's natural and what's not natural, but in a tangible sense, it's pretty much everything is natural.
Right. The artificial is just sampled nature, right? But then let's think about what the other connotation of artificial is when you say it as an an offhanded comment, like not comment, but comment to someone like, oh, that's kind of an artificial thing, right? Like what is it that people are actually getting at with that?
wait, I have a thought.
Go for it.
It goes against everything I just said, because on the one hand, it is, a building is a part of nature. All these things are part of nature. AI is part of us. At the same time, eat an apple that was grown in the woods and eat an apple that was grown in Times Square. There's like toxic things. There's pollution in heavily changed areas that we've manipulated. And there is like potential for that same kind of pollution, but in AI like type things where it knows we have a certain reaction to like sexual images. So like the AI movies are going to be like hypersexualized and hyper violence, or like, who knows, things like that. It can translate to in like a way that it feeds our super primal instincts and doesn't leave that space for like thinking and reflecting. But I don't know if it will do that, but there's a chance it could. But Hollywood already makes movies like that.
Yeah, but what I hear you saying is that like it doesn't respect the process, right? Like it's hyper processed. Anything that's concentrate is like hyper processed, and that's the question. It's our collective values, right? Like all things are true. Both sides of this argument are like, it's not even a binary argument. It's just like what are our societal values, and also to what Zeniba said earlier about like how an AI can make this awesome film because of all of these things it's collecting. It's like oh man, yeah, it's like at what point, I don't know. I'm gonna go back to it because I had it, and I just went off. But, but yeah, all things are true, and I don't know. I don't know what's right. I think it's coming down to like preferential, right? Oh, this is what I was thinking. Yeah. So like an algorithm, we're constantly force fed what we like, right? Like that's how this is also something that we understand that like if you put something in front of someone's face enough, they're going to, just by the sheer virtue of it being ever present, they're going to not necessarily like it, but they're going to gravitate towards it, right? And so, what are the odds that, like, we're getting hit with these rapid algorithms over the years, right? Like, that our taste and our what we gravitate to is also being manipulated in that same particular way, right? Like, because I think about myself, like I was never even on Instagram till like 2018. I was like, this sort of stuff, and I imagine that like my own personal like aesthetic choices are changing, all of these sort of things, just because I'm in that particular sphere now.
I'm also curious, like, or just what you're saying, Francis, and some of what Zeniba said earlier, like I'm wondering, like, okay, but who coded the AI? Like, who controls the AI? Like, it feels so just like right now I'm assuming that most of the people controlling these, or at least like contributing to the material reality of these phenomena, are raised in a like Western worldview, not indigenous, probably white, probably men, probably wealthy. Like somehow that there's a kind of I fear that there's a kind of like somehow like embedded Western cis hetero patriarchy situation happening in AI. So even though like the point was made earlier that like, oh well, it's natural, or it comes from humans, it comes from the earth. Like, whose earth? Like, what humans? Somehow feels like an important question for me, where I'm like, I don't buy this shit yet. Like, I don't know. Like a lot of the ideas I've heard, I'm like into, and I want to love, and I want to believe that AI is like part of a futurism, and like a futurism I can get behind. But like, I'm more right now, I'm like, I'd be curious to learn about who else beyond like Elon Musk I don't know enough about who's doing it, but maybe Zeniba, you could speak to that.
One of all of those things that you are assuming are, from my understanding, correct about who is programming these things, and so, right, it's just like I think it all goes back to values to me, and so it's like Instagram's value, I think, is to sell as much advertising as possible. And so if that means whatever, you're going to get your face, I don't know, mashed in with lead to look like this other person, and they own stock in that company, that's what they care about. One of the biggest things with this particular movement, especially in regards to the spiritual community, is that the entire forefront of AI is self-proclaimed atheist. And so I think pretty much anywhere that you just need diversity in everything. And so to me, my spiritual understanding is that like diversity is God, and that these sort of different fractals, mathematics, add up to this sort of one singular source, and that to sort of deny diversity is like a direct act against God. But those are very specific set of morals that are related to my own spiritual practices. And so yeah, it's just very there's a like a short, yeah, who gets the right to, who gets the God power first, and then who gets to make these decisions for everyone. And are the decisions that they make, are they based in not only short-term but long-term benefit for who, for everyone? I mean, I'm not even, I'm not a rural person, but one of the first times I went to Times Square, I cried. It was like the middle of the night, and it was like electrically bright, and I just thought, this is really gross, I hate it here. And I'm sure there's millions of people who step into that and they think this is the city, this is the dream, this is the life, this is the this is the anthill, this is where cultures are going to mix and collide, and it's dirty and it's real. And so who's to say? But if you do that on a huger level, like atomic bomb, or bigger level, then those questions are really worth asking. What the hell do we want? What do we really want if we have all this God power, like, besides selling people things? Because pretty soon, most people aren't going to have jobs. And so this whole selling people things is going to get really pointless.
Elena, what you said, I think it's very much connected to this like faux objectivity that that gets pushed with techie people. And I think that that's just kind of like a newer reverberation of like centrist ideology. You know what I mean? That's just really coded in a lot of bias, but just comes off as higher than now and like baseline of you know the way things are and the way things should be. And and I think that's very dangerous. But again, those are also my values, right? Um, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, like uh, Neve, when you said the values, like selling things, it's like what's underlying selling things. It's just like it's capital gain. It's capital gain, and there are people who do go to Times Square for the first time and are like, this is it. But I'm sure there's a connecting thread that you like could see established among those people, and what their values are.
Or even that if the entire world became Times Square, that would not be for the benefit of all of us. I mean, we would never sleep. We'd never experience dark. Nobody in the world would have. I mean, what is it? Is Shira, where they've never seen the stars? That's not for a. It's for a different sort of storyline why they've never seen the stars. But if the whole world was Times Square, no humans would have ever seen the stars. And then it would be a myth that we live in a galaxy. It would be a myth that there's other planets. It would be a conspiracy theory. And so I think it's also the scale and the velocity with which technology is moving that makes these questions so pertinent. And especially for us, I feel like people who are, predominantly Western cultural, and modern people, we're individualistic. We pride ourselves in defining our own values. But so like for me, I can define my own values, but I don't have long held systems put in place for constantly checking in with my values. Like I'm not like, okay, I really need to be accountable on a really consistent basis. So let me call my council of friends who know what my values are that I've written in my little fucking book. Like we don't have that. And so we're just freeballing everything and making huge messes all around the world and kind of being like, oops again, oops. But like these next few messes, the power is just so massive that it's like, how many times can we do the Fukushima oops before we're in really, really serious problems, before we need to decide what we want and how we want to live, I guess, in relationship to capitalism. And inspiration.
You said something really interesting about if the world was just became Times Square and there were just a whole bunch of LCD ads everywhere. That the idea of that we exist in a gallery a galaxy would be a myth. It says something about how insular we are, right? And we just keep selling things. We keep selling things so that we could fill this void within ourselves and then project like this idea of ourselves. And it's all about the self. It's all about the self. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we fix any of this.
Is anyone else from the group who has not spoken like to put in anything? Just to open up more to the group.
I know I've spoken already, but I guess I do have one comment. Or I'm just thinking like I'm trying to reconcile in my brain one of my favorite feminist scholars, Donna Haraway, writing the Cyborg Manifesto. And she like kind of uses the figure of the cyborg to ask humans to consider the ways we're implicated with other beings, or like already made up of other technologies that are plant and animal and like beyond the human, like more than human. And so yeah, like somehow I feel like in that instance, I see like technology and like change and shape shifting and like in a way like AI potentially as a kind of like feminist practice of like getting outside the human ego. That like the human ego is never like, we are never single, we are always cyborgian, because like even just this device like shows that I'm not just this brain, I'm also this brain somehow. Yeah, like I see there's like feminist potential in that, but then when we were just talking about it, I'm like, it gets lost somewhere in translation or something. And I'm curious if y'all have thought about, yeah, how to reconcile that, or suddenly I just got lost by that. So
When I think about feminine or like femininity, I automatically think about the third eye. And I feel like technology has, I mean, more than just technology, amongst other things, industrial revolution, uh, everything in our fluoride in our water, like, has hardened that part of our brain to even connect intuitively. And I'm sure to code, I'm not a coder, but I'm sure to code requires us to use intuition to some degree. So I think if in the perfect world, it would be like if it was a female forward, I don't know, if there was like AI coders who were like mostly female, it could be really amazing, and they probably would be really good at it.
Yeah, I think it's all, to me, it's just all about intention. And like if you have that intentionality of creating something with this particular lens, then it's going to benefit from that lens that you have used your will to guide it towards. And once again, to clarify, I love technology. I have a way that I think I just used technology that I thought was so powerful and so positive. I went and did an alpha brainwave training program at a place called BioCybernaut Institute. And so basically, BioCybernaut is to inner space what an astronaut is to outer space. And this program used shamans, computer programs, electrodes, neurofeedback cohesively together as a form of therapy to rewire my brain, and to be able to look at my brain scans each day and look at my mood scales and to realize, oh my God, my brain is a computer and I've been running this program since first grade and I hate this program. This program is leading to my own self-sabotage and destruction. And to be able to access through my super brain, which is what we call it when you're in the chamber. So you're attached to electrodes on your brain, and then you're in a dark room with a set of speakers, and each part of the brain is playing a different musical note on each speaker. And then your coherence is also a different tone. And you're basically trying to raise your alpha by crescendoing the music and just sort of basically, while you're in that room, your brain has something it never has, which is feedback on the brain. Normally, your brain just has feedback on absolutely everything else in the world. And so, obviously, there are a lot of billionaires who go to this very expensive training to just simply raise their IQs and to make business decisions. But there's also an entire spiritual side to it. And I mean, the people who run it are very spiritual. And if they weren't, who knows what it could be. But also how each person still uses it within that also has completely different outcomes. And I mean, it was totally such a radical way of working through things. I feel that I was able to work through things that I don't think I could have paid any amount of money in traditional therapy to get to that point in my process, nor would I have even known to go to therapy about this topic, to even know how much this thing was interlaid, and to let a sort of computer program tell me, so actually your brain is reacting to this word. What do you associate this word with? You know, and then from there to work. And so it's like, we have the power to, I mean, every sort of atrocity on the planet, we have the ability to use technology to heal people, to make people walk who cannot walk, to make people, you know, do anything, to get people clean water, you know, to get people absolutely anything in the world. We have like, it's like could be the most exciting, you know, pioneering time of humanity where we just step forward and use these tools to like literally make this dream, this sort of Garden of Eden that we all sort of seem to have some sort of collective memory that there is some sort of better way to be, or perhaps a discorporated way to be. But we all seem to find this being human sort of a burden and a bit, you know, tacky or a bit, you know, gruesome in a way. And so it's like, we have the power through our own will and through these miraculous tools to literally make any world we want. Why would we just carelessly stumble into continuing to sell people things when that would actually be totally irrelevant? Like, it's not even a relevant topic, selling people things, when we could easily use computers to make the resources, to not overuse them, to use them abundantly, and to literally just chill and heal.
I think that'd be dope. It's just right now I just see people mindlessly scrolling. I was talking to a friend the other day and she literally was like, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm going through personal things," and I thought that she like may have known because I just now got on Instagram after like a break. Well, now it's been longer, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you know, my partner has cancer," and she was like, "Oh no, I don't. Sorry, I just scroll." It's like, oh, like I'm seeing still Instagram as this sacred connection to these people that I have not seen in so long. And she's like, I'm just another, you know. So that's, you know, it's like it's distraction versus healing.
Well,
Versus,
these things are highly addictive. I have an addictive personality, and I can literally go on TikTok and then be like, it's 5 a.m. Shit. Good thing that's not heroin, because I'd be dead. You know, like, it's really, they're really cleverly engineered. And I mean, TikTok can help you reach people who are more like-minded than Instagram because of the openness of the algorithm at this time. But also it is like so much more addictive. And in terms of, there's also another book by Cal Newport I really love called Deep Work. And basically it's about, you know, as thought workers, the sort of last frontier, we're sort of at the end of the thought revolution, and we're moving into the consciousness revolution, but we're still in this point where, you know, most of us people who are really competing to get paid are using our thoughts as our main source of competition. Even an engineer, right, is like most likely using his ideas about engineering to become a leader in that field. And basically these extremely, they're likened, I think, to slot machines, right? Like, it's not even poker. Like, it's literally like the most short-term addictive, colors flashing, wheels spinning kind of thing. And for your focus, it's really, really impairing people's focus. And I always jokingly call people insta scrambled egg brains when somebody's, you know, they don't have the ability to really focus much. And your focus is basically your main source of power. You know, if you want to do something, you're going to need your focus.
Yeah, scrolling's like the antithesis to meditation. You know, yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful. That's exactly what it is. It's like mindless consumption in the mind. And also it's like, I always wonder, you know, how much how much time do we need to process things? And is it possible if I scroll for 5 hours, how much time do I realistically need to process what I've just experienced, keeping in mind that some of it might be extremely graphic. You might watch a motherfucking man die. You might see your friend's wedding and then scroll and watch someone get murdered. Like, and I wake up in the morning, and before I do my meditation, my thoughts are usually, I can hear the TikTok songs. I can what's processing through my mind is what I was downloading last night, which I guess is still processing. And I wonder, obviously we're advancing, like they say, like people 100 years ago, we're seeing in a day what people 100 years ago were seeing in their lifetime, or whatever one of those things is. But I imagine now we're just seeing, such an exponential amount. How are we evolving, and how much time do you actually need to process this? I mean, like, if you scroll for 5 hours, what is that? Maybe like the equivalent of watching 10 seconds of 500 different movies.
Okay, but is seeing advancing because are we actually feeling? Like, I feel like our people, like, we forget that there is emotional intelligence. I feel like this is making us very dumb as far as emotional intelligence goes, because yes, we're seeing more, but also we're numbing other parts of our senses. So yes, 100 years ago, nobody saw as much content as we see now, but the amount of joy they must have felt when they saw a butterfly pass by is probably beyond what we feel in, I don't know, I was going to say an orgasm, but in any, it's probably impeccable. Thanks, Michaela. Yeah.
It's funny you say orgasm, because it is just as brash as porn. You know what I mean? It really is hitting you on those particular, like, least common denominator levels. That the concentration we're talking about, right? Like with the colors here, and I mean, I remember just 2 years ago telling a buddy about how often we get ads when we scroll in stories, and they're like, "No, there's no way, that's you, right?" Right? But like, probably still happens now, but you go through a story, you go through like every two or three, you're getting an ad, right? And then these things are just constantly getting far more complicated and complex and like integrated, right? Like there's always, there's the programmatic advertising. Now you speak, your microphone's on, they know what's up. Like, um, at what point are we like, do we even have any consciousness like after that, right? If we just succumb to it, where like at any particular point we can just, you know like you were saying earlier, right? You can go check out a friend's life that you haven't seen in like 12 years. You can just do that. Like, what are the ramifications of that?
Or people with their exes. I mean, let's say as an example, it used to be whatever, you were living your life off in New York, you came back to your small town, and you ran into this woman, and she said, did you hear Jacob got married? And in your life, and then you thought, fuck that bitch. Who the hell is that bitch to tell me that? And then you had to deal with that until you had to deal with that, maybe for a few weeks of thinking, was that the one who got away? Well, why did he marry her? I thought he didn't want to get married, whatever people think. But that's very different than somebody who has watched this person the entire time since then, and has watched this person, every person they've dated, every breakup they've gone through, knows what college they went to, what grad school they went to, where they work, knows so much information about these people. And it's just like, I feel that it's so much harder to move on and move forward. And it's like older people, in my opinion, they don't carry that same kind of weight with the internet. They're not connected in the same way. If they found one or two people from their elementary school, that would be like totally crazy to them, let alone if everyone from their high school was there and they had seen them for the last 40 years. It's just so different. And then, like, we just don't have research to know what is this doing to us.
I think it really like substantiates all of our relationships, right? Because it's like this idea that we have, these people at our grasp at all times or whatever. So who cares? And uh, yeah, I think that's what it does. I think it just kind of um, kills true connection.
Yeah, or if you have a real emergency, a real true emergency, and you're sort of being shaken to your core, and your community is going to be tested, and the strength of your relationships is going to be tested by this challenge. I don't think that that kind of challenge is necessarily directly related to a very large connective group, like a super large web like that. And maybe it can have lots of benefits, especially monetarily, if you can raise money to help in the situation. But in terms of the emotional strength, you know what I mean? Like, so often, so much of what we need is so basic and so simple. We need somebody to come over and bring us lasagna. We need somebody to come over and just sit on our bed with us. Like we really need these very simple things to like survive.
Curious, when was the last time, and this is for everybody, but with you first, Zeniba, you were telling someone something in person, something, quite substantial, important, and they just pulled the phone out and they just started scrolling. And it wasn't anything heinous, like it just happened.
Well, so it does happen to me a lot when I've triggered the other person, because it actually is a very common triggered response from people who are my age to be uncomfortable, and so they kind of turn to their phone automatically to like create a sense of safe. It's like a safety blanket for a lot of people my age, and so it's fairly common. But I mean, also, I would say I don't interact with that many people, but I will say almost at some point in nearly every conversation somebody is drawn to their phone.
I mean, for a lot of people, it's their solitude. But we are going to wrap up here soon. So I just wanted to put out there thank you everyone for all of your input and thoughts. My mind has definitely been exercised. But yeah, if Z and Francis, if you want to leave us with, one last sentiment or feeling before we all sign off, that would be great. Or anything.
Stay inspired, stay beautiful, have, keep pious values. Uh, now it's time for me to sell, because everyone else is doing it. Check out Phil and I's shorts on crackingupin5.com. They're a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I would just say that it wasn't my intention to scare anybody or alarm anyone. I don't have an overstanding of this topic. I have a measly understanding. And so I'm sure that there are many ingenious and clever ways for us to overcome this way easier than we think. And so to just keep us sort of, to just be clear and deliberate with your intention for the world. And I think that will take us way, way far.
Sweet. Well, I think I'll pass it back to Anna and Jerry. Jerry said a really great comment in the questions here. That was awesome. If anyone has been reading the chat, check it out. But this has been amazing, and happy super full moon. Can set out our intentions of the, the good part of my brain is like totally exploded from this conversation. Positive AI technology in the future. Healthy, healing AI technology in the future.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. That was so illuminating and inspiring. I'm just gonna post the Ghetto Film support link again. for those who would like to donate. But that's all from me. Thank you guys so much. Again, like a true honor and a privilege to hear inside your brains. Jerry, you have any thoughts?
I agree. Thank you. I feel like this has been, thank you, Lim, for bringing Z and Francis, and for hosting tonight. And thank you everyone for listening in. I've had a real pleasure just listening and thinking along with the conversation as it moved. So I appreciate you all moving it as you did. This is also our very last Talk Flock of the season. So thanks for sharing it with us. Anna's going to go back to Germany, and then we're going to be in time zones that are not necessarily friendly to each other. But when we are, again, in friendly time zones, we will do this again, and we hope to see you there.
Happy super full moon.
Happy super full moon. Stay well, enjoy. The sun is setting here. Maybe go look at something outside.
You know, let's all follow Philip's lead.
Hey, much love to you all. Stay connected, all right? Peace.
I pulled a blank card, so everyone meditate on animal.
Okay.
New animal coming at you.